What's going on, Niners Nation? Welcome back to another podcast of Niners Talk. Joined by my brother, Tim.
Good
My
evening.
brother from another mother, Brian.
Greetings. Hey.
So you may have noticed that the sound is a little bit better, which is because we all went out and bought microphones. So for all of you who've listened before, thank you. And we apologize for the sound quality. But if you could, we'd ask you to leave us a review, give us a like, subscribe. But as always, guys, how we feeling? Tim, how you feeling? You're in Orlando.
I'm in Orlando. Yes, I will say this: when you trail a 12-year-old around Universal Studios Orlando in the Florida heat, there is no description to describe the amount of fatigue that one has at the end of that day.
Would you rank it Baton Death March? Was it?
No, but I did tell my daughter that there have been races I have done. I'm a runner. There have been races I've done. I haven't felt this tired.
Brian, how you feeling?
How many steps did you do today, Tim?
I think we looked at around 3:00. I don't know how many steps. We think we're about 14, 15,000. I think we had done at least 6 miles.
Solid.
Thank you.
I feel you. I hear you. Those amusement park walks are brutal.
Brian, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm missing Disneyland. We went a couple weeks back. So it's great to see that Tim's in Universal. Enjoying that. I'm sure it's hot as heck down there.
It's a tad warm. It's a tad humid.
So with those little orange guys in the road, they burst into flames.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just feel sorry for the characters who come out in all this gear and they're in the middle of the sun at 12 noon where it's like 90 degrees and who knows what the humidity is. I'm like, you are earning your pay today, man. You are earning your pay.
I would have killed to get.
I hope they're hanging out in the shade doing those
I hope
autographs in
so
the shade.
too. But yeah, it's just, God love those guys. But no, we've been having a lot of fun. But like this morning, my daughter is like, all right, let's get up. We're going to do some rides. And I'm just kind of like, everything hurts. Like my first thought is, where's the Advil?
So first, before we get to Niners talk, rather than life of John, Tim, and Brian, congrats to Brian. Finished the San Francisco Marathon. Brian, what'd you run, man? What was your time?
Ooh, a slow 4:19:17. So 4 hours, 19 minutes. I was kind of aiming for 4, but wasn't in the cards. I'll just talk about this race real quick. It had a really big elevation gain right in the beginning. Actually, probably the first half, but overall, it was good. It was a good day running through the city. So you run from the Embarcadero down to like the Golden Gate Bridge, over down to Sausalito, back across to like Golden Gate Park, and then you finish through the Mission and back in the Embarcadero. So it was a good day, good run.
And how
It
many
was great to see
marathons
Tim out there.
How many marathons is this for you now?
This is number 16.
Congratulations.
16 on the books.
Congratulations. That's a hell of an accomplishment.
And Tim, you ran the half
Always
marathon.
hard as hell.
I did the half. Yes, I did the half. I chose not to do the full, but I did the first half. And as Brian said, we started in Chrissy Field and it's pretty good elevation to go up to the bridge. You run over the bridge. As Brian said, we ran down a little bit of Sausalito, came back over, and I ran through a little bit of Sea Cliff and ended in Golden Gate Park. I was aiming for under 2 hours. I did 2 hours and 26 seconds. So didn't quite get it, but considering the elevation and just being, it's a tough course in terms of just it gets crowded and some of the very narrow parts of the course, but it is what it is. So I was happy with my time and I got to see Brian in the Bay Area, which is always terrific. So yeah. And I also saw the best tattoo I think I've seen in the last 40 years.
Well, we will get to that.
Okay. Well, I will just save it there, but I wanted to give
Hey,
the teaser.
John, I got to say one thing real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, one more thing, John. So we got to have, if you're ever in the Bay Area, we had an awesome dinner post-race over at the house in Prime Rib, a San Francisco treat. I know
It's a San
Niners
Francisco
the Niners
institution.
used to go there. It is.
Right.
It's awesome. And we went and food is,
Right.
yeah.
I've been with you at the House of Prime Rib. It's okay.
Well, I'm just talking about our listeners who have and John, we actually sat at the same table.
We did.
Oh,
So
that's weird. So yeah, so So for those of you in the San Francisco area,
2 martinis
Brian,
for the price of
Yeah.
1.
yes,
2
This is
martinis for
true.
the
This
price of
is
1.
true. This is
Don't
why you
forget.
take an Uber or have somebody like Brian's wife drive you home.
So yeah, so for those of you who would like to, House of Prime Rib still there. So anyway, this isn't House of Prime Rib talk; it's Niners talk. So we actually have people catching the ball from a
We have
quarterback.
helmets.
We got helmets going on.
We have
We got
shoulder
pads.
pads. We
And
have
you know what?
grass.
And do you know what today is?
It started.
We are
Tuesday.
40 days away from opening day. You can smell it. It's that close. Like, smell it. It's that close. So
Would it be too much of a stretch to say we're also less than 48 hours from the Hall of Fame game, or is that just pushing it? I think it's pushing it.
I think that's pushing it because,
Okay, it's pushing it.
but we're getting close, man. There's guys out there, football, there's fights. I mean, there's stuff happening. So talking 2023's training camp. This is originally supposed to be the preview, but we just couldn't get all together. So now it's a little bit of a review. So people have passed the ball. They've caught the ball. They've gotten into fights. But overall, it's been about a week, right? Tim, impressions so far? I mean, we obviously haven't been there like all the other 49ers podcasts.
Yeah, I think the impression so far was I was wondering what kind of shape Brock Purdy was going to be in after the surgery, and every indication from the people on The Athletic and other reporters are tweeting that he looks about as good and as healthy as he can be post surgery. So that was the impression number one. I think the other impression that has come off has been about Trey Lance and that he's been looking pretty sharp, though he is still struggling in some of his shorter throws, which has been an ongoing theme with him. But I think, the other day, yesterday, Monday, they had their first padded practice and huge fight broke out. But I think that was just after the NFC Championship game, after several months and several weeks, guys just wanted to hit somebody and emotions were running pretty high. I don't think Shanahan was all that upset about it, but he did pull the team aside and say, we're all on the same team here. But I can't imagine Shanahan is upset by seeing something like that level of competition.
And shockers of shockers, Jawan Jennings was involved. I honestly would love to have him on this podcast just to hear, like, what do you say to people? Like, how do you get under their skin? I mean, that would just be a fascinating. So, Jawan, if you're listening, you have an open invite. Brian, so what have you heard so far about training camp? You're in the Bay Area. What's going on KMBR wise?
I've heard that from the quarterbacks, Sam Darnold's doing pretty good. There's a stiff competition probably between him and Trey Lance, from what I'm gathering. I know this is always going to be Brock's team coming back, so they talk about that a lot, that this was going to be Brock's team as soon as he stepped in the door. That was never going to be in any doubt. I don't know. They also talk around about Drake Jackson looking much better. I know he got hurt last year. He wore down as the season kind of went on, but he's looking pretty good. Yeah, I think overall it's just going in the right direction. I didn't hear about the fight, so I didn't know who was involved. So thank you for telling me this is John Jennings. Who was on the other side of that?
On the other side, I want to say Drake. No, it wasn't Drake Greenlaw. Drake Greenlaw tackled McCaffrey today, which apparently is a no-no.
Yeah.
But after a good solid tackle, they both got up, hugged it out, and just went back to their huddles. So, no, I just heard it was a big fight. And my first thought was football's back. These guys have been ready to go for so long after a bitter loss to Philadelphia several months ago. So I would say that something like that is a positive because that's how much I think how ready this team is to start competing.
So I saw like in all the tweets and stuff, that it was Demetrius Flanagan Fowles was involved. Somebody was in a headlock, and Jawan Jennings was asked to leave because he was just chirping too much. So I just think it was one of those things like they were just got the pads on, they were getting after it.
Yeah.
So another little thing I read just before we got on was Jake Moody has been all that we all hoped after replacing Robbie Gould, and hit a 60-yarder today in training camp. I mean, that's not like 60 yards in Denver.
It was 60 yards. I thought I saw 57. I did not see 60.
Well, maybe it could have gone 60, but it's in the Bay Area. And Brian, is it like hot there? Is it cool? I mean,
I
do you get the
mean, well,
barometric
it's
pressure?
I mean, it's not today it's not 10 degrees cooler. Yesterday was hot. Weekend was hot. So that was impressive if he was able to hit 60 out here.
Yeah. So Tim alluded to it a little bit, but before in other podcasts, we had talked about people's levels of fandom. And I had said myself was an 8. Tim was a 9.5. Brian's somewhere in there too. Yeah, we might have found a 10.
I
Like
think
a
we
10.
no, I think to quote the one of the greatest movies of all time, Spinal Tap, I think we found an 11.
So Tim, tell us
Yes.
about this 11.
I'm running the San Francisco half. And first part of the race, you run up just you're coming up past Fort Point, you're running up to the Golden Gate Bridge. Those of you in the San Francisco Bay Area probably know it's pretty good incline. I'm behind this guy and he has his shirt off, but he has a tattoo and it's a big 16. And there's only
Like
one
like
number
shoulders to
that
waist 16?
shoulders to waist. Absolutely. Huge.
So it looks like
Absolutely
a
huge.
jersey. Looks like a
It's like a
jersey number
jersey.
on his back.
Exactly. Like a jersey. But inside the numerals, inside the 1 and the 6, he also has artistry of Montana back to throw, holding a Super Bowl trophy, scrambling, and so forth. And it just was like, that is a fan. I mean, that is an absolute fan. And I ran past the guy and I said, "Sir, that is the most beautiful tattoo I've ever seen in my life." And he just looked at me, smiled, and said, "Go Niners." I said, "Go Niners." So that's an 11. That's a fan.
Yeah, that is fanatic. It is. I don't have any tattoos. I know Tim does. Brian, you don't have any tattoos, do you?
Nope, none.
So I've always wondered about the back tattoo. That seems like, can you see it? Does he have to look in the mirror and go, yeah, there's Joe. It's still back there.
But people like me can. And
Yeah.
it was inspirational running up a hill trying to get to the Golden Gate Bridge. Whoever that gentleman is, if you're listening, it was a gorgeous tattoo, sir. My hat is off to you.
So that's interesting. That was like in the first like 2 miles of that race. So he already
Yeah,
had a
about
shirt
two,
off.
3 miles, something like that.
Well, if you're gonna have a Joe Montana tattoo in San Francisco, you might as well have your
Yeah.
shirt off.
It's like if you
Absolutely.
got to take it off. Yeah.
Especially in the San Francisco Marathon.
Yeah, it's 45 degrees. Why is your shirt off? Did you see my back? Getting back to training camp. So all word out is that today Brock Purdy apparently was on. He's had a bunch of stuff to Christian McCaffrey. I haven't heard much Kittle, but really that he's starting to knock the rust off and look pretty good. But I think, and then we had the little incident. I don't know if you guys saw where our new guy, Klein Farrell, if that pronounces correctly,
Mhm.
apparently hit the ball on Purdy's throwing arm. And of course, everybody took one big gasp, but it's like, well, go play football. What else have you guys heard from training camp that kind of gets your antenna up?
Well, I'll go first. I had been seeing a lot of positive comments on Javon Kinlaw. And from the previous podcasts, I was I would say I was down on Kinlaw. I just thought that with the Niners bringing in, obviously, their touted free agent from the Eagles, I thought Kinlaw was just going to be on his way out. But as some people have noted, if you're having Kinlaw in a rotational spot where he doesn't have to be the every down guy, he could potentially flourish. And since he was on a snap count last year, again, him being just a rotational piece, adding some depth on the DL, but he has had some decent reviews from training camp so far. So I'm happy to hear that. I really hope that he is able to progress on that, just given his injury history and the fact that I really want him to prove Grant Cohn wrong after last year's interview. But kudos to Javon. I hope he keeps it up.
Brian, have you been hearing anything more?
Yeah. I've heard Drake Jackson's looking pretty good. I think the way that he's moving this year so much more better than so much better than last year. I know he was a rookie last year, so this is kind of his sophomore year, his second year getting prepared. I've also heard that Brandon Ayuk's done really well. So
Yeah.
I think he's in his 4th year this year, and it's with a team option, I think, for next year for the 5th.
Mhm.
So he's doing really well, and he just continues to improve and improve. And I'm sure he'll get re-signed by us in any way whatsoever.
Speaking of re-signs, there's a small-ish guy who can play left, he can play right. He's got quads the size of sequoia trees.
Are you being
Name
slightly sarcastic?
just a slightly, and his name is Nick Bosa. So on a scale of 1 to 10, Brian, how are you feeling? You feel like it's gonna get done? Like like Bosa's gonna be signed. We're not gonna have drama going into Pittsburgh.
I have a feeling he'll definitely be signed. I can only say what I've read and what I've heard, but I don't know if I guess from what I understand, he wants, not that he wants, there's thought that should he get paid more than that guy from the Rams? Why did his name escape me? Aaron
Aaron
Donald.
Don
Aaron
That's right.
Donald.
Yeah.
He's dead to us
So
anyway.
are they going to pay him Aaron Donald money or slightly below? I mean, I know Aaron Donald does have a Super Bowl and 3 defensive player of the years. I think he will get signed. I think it's just a matter of time, and they're probably just working out the final details of the money. Now, I mean, I know with NFL contracts, there's what's guaranteed and what's not guaranteed, and I think that could be coming into it, but I'm sure he'll be signed, and there'll be nothing to worry about by the time we get to Pittsburgh week 1.
So how you feeling about Nick's
He,
extension?
he's going to be signed. You can take that to the bank. I know there's a little bit of a negotiation between his camp and the Niners, Lynch and Pragmathi, but I think but at the end of the day, both sides want Nick Bosa to be on the 49ers. This is a championship caliber football team. The 49ers will just have to play some financial Tetris given their salary cap situation, but I'm not losing sleep over the fact that Nick Bosa is not. He'll get into camp and he'll be ready to go by Pittsburgh
Yeah,
by the time we go against Pittsburgh.
I really have to give credit to Lynch and Prague, and I was not a Prague fan for a pretty long time because they've done a very good job of sliding people at this very point in time. You know, they did it with Debo, they did it with Kittle, they're gonna do it with Bosa. I think it may take a little bit longer than we're all accustomed to. I'm thinking second preseason game, and if there's anybody who I'm really not worried about who's ready to go for football, it's Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll throw one other thing out there, John, is that technically Nick Bosa is under contract. He should be reporting for camp. The Niners can actually fine him for not playing at training camp, and they're choosing to
mhm.
waive those fines. Now, obviously, I think that's a gesture of goodwill towards the Bosa camp. But if the 49ers were really playing hardball, I think you'd see something like that come into play, and we're not. So I think that's just Lynch and Marathi and the Bosa camp getting on the same page. So I think that's just another thing to look at and just say that this is a deal that will get done. Like you said, I wouldn't put it past them to say go right up until the end of training camp or even the second or third preseason game. But I think a deal is going to get done.
Yeah, I do too. It's one of the things that just no one seems to be worried about. Nobody's doing Twitter freak out or threads freak out. They're like, it's going to happen. Let's worry about Brock Purdy and make up some drama about how Trey Lance looks better than him throwing the ball in warm up.
I will say that just shifting subjects real quick, and is that I actually suspected, were we going to see some kind of quarterback controversy coming into this training camp with Purdy's injury and Trey Lance maybe making a name for himself? We have not. It's Purdy's
No,
team, I think, as Brian said earlier.
just talking heads making stuff up. That's you, Grant Cohn, Eric Crocker, Kawakami, all you guys, blah, 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 blah. Listen to me. Anyway, so that brings me to a fun training camp story. So I never played football growing up, except in the street. Brian, did you play football at all? Like, you ever put the pads on?
Not at all. I'm a runner today,
No.
so it's not going to work for me.
So that leaves us with with Tim. So,
Uncle Tim,
well, I've told the story to my daughters a few times. So long time ago, Tim went to football camp, and there was this awesome campus at Santa Clara University called Offense Defense Camp. It was Tim's kind of first exposure about putting the pads on. So they had pros who would come to the camp and do some demos. And Tim got to meet one of his heroes, and frankly, one of my heroes too, and probably Brian's too, is Ronnie Lott. So, Tim, you want to tell us about Ronnie Lott, Lester Hayes?
Well, I think with Ronnie Lott, I was eating breakfast and Ronnie comes down and he sits down at the same table as me and several other people. And I just immediately, everything just like time just stopped because I'm looking at Ronnie Lott, who's sitting like just a few seats down from me. And he starts talking, like asking people where they're from. I forget what I even had for breakfast because I was just glaring like, that's Ronnie Lott. That's him. He's sitting there. He actually eats. He eats hash browns. He eats a lot of hash browns. I never knew players did that. I never knew they breathed the same air that I did. So I was very much in awe. But so fast forward, we would have practices twice a day, and Lester Hayes, longtime cornerback for the Raiders, both Oakland and LA, and he's out there coaching us. And I was playing linebacker at the time, and we were getting up, we were doing drills, and one of the kids that I was with was just kind of goofing off. He was just not paying attention. He was kind of like pushing the other kids and elbowing and just kind of just being that sort of a kid that you got to straighten out. And so Lester is like, hey, you 14 or whatever the number is, come here. Let me show you. It's like kid comes over, it's like, get in a football stance. Kid gets in a football stance. Lester Hayes takes both his hands and just goes boom. And I mean hits this kid. And the kid just goes flying backwards. Everybody got real quiet. Now, was in 1988, 1989.
That's when you could hit
If
kids.
it was today, it would be all over Twitter, and Lester Hayes would have been picked up for assaulting a minor or something like that. But we didn't have that back then. So we line up, and I'm in my stance, and Lester Hayes comes right behind me. Like he's lit. I could feel him behind me. I could feel him breathing on my neck. He's so close. And I'm like, he's going to kill me. He's going to kill me, and my life will be over. Lester Hayes grabs me by my shoulder pads, by both shoulders, and he just shakes. He's like, listen up, man.
So,
No.
speaking of, and this is one of the things so far, we got to knock on wood, whatever wood's around, let's just knock on it. But the Niners have not had an injury so far. And you look at what's already happened in Cincinnati. And Joe Burrow is already out for a whole bunch of weeks because he's got a calf strain, which if you're out for a while, it ain't just a calf strain. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so far, not much has happened. And that's right now to me is the biggest danger of these training camps is like, you can't have these guys get hurt.
Can we
Like, you
stop?
gotta-
I feel like we're pushing the envelope just talking about it.
Yeah, I don't want to be the guys like we just talked about nobody getting hurt and then we post this and like somebody gets hurt. Like, oh, those dinosaur guys. they
I will
jinxed
put all the
team.
blame on you, John. I would immediately just put all the blame on you and step aside and point at you and say, he's the reason.
Yeah,
But
you're like watching a basketball game, and then you're talking about the guy not missing free throws, and then he misses a free throw.
But other than that, it's interesting to watch now because it's very different than when we were growing up. They've got those helmets, the Darth helmet, the guy like from Spaceballs, like they have those big helmets on now.
Helmets for the helmets.
Yes, exactly. And obviously they're not doing 2-a-days and things like that. But that to me is really the thing. So other than that, is any other stuff? I mean, it's hard to tell sometimes like what may be happening in training camp, but have you heard anything that you're like, I don't know, man.
I haven't heard anything that has caused me to go, I'm not sure about this. I think so far the news has been pretty positive out of the Niners camp thus far. At the same time, I think we also need to take this with a grain of salt because they're not playing games yet. We haven't seen Brock Purdy throw a pass against an opposing defense just yet. And I remember 2019, there was real concern over how Garoppolo was going to fare after coming back from ACL surgery. First preseason game against the Broncos, he doesn't do well. And social media explodes. Like, he's going to be the worst thing ever. And Niners going to do quarterback shopping. It just snowballs. And I'm sitting going, it's a preseason game. Nobody's going to
Look,
remember this one. Well, I
it's really,
remember it, but
yeah.
it just was
Look,
like, so I think it's, I'm happy to hear the positive news, but at the same time, we're at practice.
yeah. Brian, has anybody in the local media had anything like, oh boy, I don't know.
The only thing that I've kind of read is on KNBR, Braden Willis, I guess one of the new draft picks this year, is doing pretty good. And he's definitely, it sounds like he's outplaying one of their other draft picks, Cameron, was it Cameron Latu?
Oh, from tight
So
end?
yeah, for the tight end spots. But other than that, I don't think there's really anything else that I've kind of heard that you guys
Then
haven't brought up yet.
another positive that I have heard, and this pairs with someone who I haven't, is Ty Davis Price apparently has been having a great camp. But we haven't heard Jordan Mason's name. And when we did the offensive preview, we talked a lot about, we thought Jordan Mason was going to be the backup, but it just seems odd. I haven't heard Jordan Mason's name at all.
No, you haven't, but that, I mean, we know what we see from Twitter and from articles and news. Just because we're not hearing about him doesn't mean necessarily that he's not performing well.
Mhm.
Maybe just the reporters just haven't seen him. Again, I think we have to take this for what it is. It is practice. We're excited that training camp's back, but it is practice. And I don't know of any other season watching the 49ers where in week 6 against the Rams, we've looked back and says, that second practice on a Tuesday, that really foretold how we're going to perform against the Rams defense and Patrick Ramsey.
That's true. Brian, anybody else that you've heard about?
Let's see. I was reading on KNBR today. I saw that Jalen Hurd, our old former wide receiver
Yes.
with the Pats, he
Mhm.
he officially retired. So
He
I don't think
did.
I don't think he ever really played, right? He never played anywhere.
He only did preseason.
Yeah.
His back never
Yeah.
was able to handle it. Anyway, in an alternate universe, Jalen Hurd would have been would have been awesome. But also in an alternate universe, Tim had Chat GPT write a story about the 49ers, which was a little weird and spooky
It
at the
was
same
it's the
time.
49ers in an alternate universe. Actually, it wasn't quite Chat GPT. Microsoft has this new tool based on ChatGPT's technology called Copilot. So you take it and you can put it into a PowerPoint or, in my case, a Word document and open up a Word document and Copilot says, what do you want to write about? So I write verbatim, write me a story about the San Francisco 49ers. And it starts. And I start reading about Jimmy Garoppolo, how Jimmy Garoppolo was not traded from the Patriots. He was picked up as a free agent. And how Colin Kaepernick, under Kyle Shanahan's tutelage, became an all-pro quarterback. And all of a sudden, I realized this is not the same dimension of the 49ers that I've been watching them these past several years. We're in a new dimension here. But the story went that Kaepernick in 2019 took the 49ers to the playoffs, but then he gets hurt. And Jimmy Garoppolo, the free agent, steps in, performs wonders in the playoffs, and takes the 49ers to the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, alternate universe, the 49ers in the Super Bowl. They go down 14-0, but then Garoppolo has this wonderful connection with Kendrick Bourne. They just start feeding off each other. The Niners rally to tie the game. Then the defense steps up. And the Niners are down 31-27 with 2 minutes to go, and Garoppolo leads them down the field for the game-winning drive, and the 49ers win the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs for their 6th Super Bowl title. So in the third dimension of NFL football, the 49ers would have had their 6th Super Bowl title, but I think it's
close.
two things. Yeah, two. One is that I think Copilot and ChatGPT need to get their facts straight. And secondly, the story was very well written, but it just made me sad because we all know how the Super Bowl against the Chiefs ended up.
Exactly.
Like, artificial intelligence, why are you toying with my emotions?
Speaking of, so a couple other points, because there's only so much you can talk about with training camps. Have you guys seen quarterback at all?
I have not.
I have not either.
And based on your reviews, John, I don't think I want to.
there's certain points the Niners fans need to avoid,
The
but
first 15 minutes.
the first 50 minutes, but it's quite good.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins comes across as really interesting. Another point that's been coming up quite a bit, and we've been fortunate in how Kyle and Lynch have managed the team, but we've been bitten by it before, is how running backs are paid. So being on the East Coast, the news has been all about Saquon Barkley. He, he signed kind of an deal with the franchise tag. Maybe he got a little bit more. Josh Jacobs hasn't been signed yet, but really, it's kind of one of those things. For me, I think the running backs are vastly underpaid. We're lucky that Christian McCaffrey is signed for a while. The Panthers actually had the foresight to sign him as a quasi running back, wide receiver. Same with Debo. But these guys, I mean, Saquon Barkley makes up 40% of the New York Giants offense. Why wouldn't you pay that guy? Why would you let him go? And Brian, thoughts on just how the running backs, because we had this with Raheem.
Look at it, and this is probably something we can talk about in a fantasy episode of fantasy football with this. But running backs, and I'm not talking about injury. I don't want to jinx anything for Josh Jacobs or Saquon or CMC, but they honestly only have about 2 or 3 good years. And then unfortunately they get hurt. And I just think back to, we've been watching football for a long time. I think about, was it Steven Davis, that guy who was on the Redskins or the Commanders 20 years ago? Priest Holmes, who was on Kansas City. Those guys were unstoppable, but they were only unstoppable for maybe 2 seasons. And then they got a knee injury or they got an ankle injury, and then they always get hurt. I know that it's tough to say, but I think that position in itself, you take the most beating, I think, other than the quarterback. You get hit the most.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Tim?
Yeah, I think the position has definitely changed dramatically since the days of Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, and Emmitt Smith, where year in and year out, that was your workhorse. I think I think the position has changed. Look at the running backs that the 49ers have had over the last, ever since Kyle Shanahan came in. You had Carlos Hyde, and then we went to, who was it? It was Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida, and then Raheem Mossert, and moving on. Then we've got Elijah. Then we have Christian McCaffrey. So I think Shanahan in particular has always done a sort of a running back by committee. Now that CMC has come in, I think that will probably change a bit. But the position has definitely evolved so that you've got multiple people you can put in the backfield that don't have to be that every down back. I think that's just that the game has changed. Maybe another example would be Jarrett McKinnon of the Chiefs. He comes in on certain plays, certain situations, but he isn't that every down back that's going to take that kind of pounding. So I just think the game has evolved. I think that's kind of the more of the Kyle Shanahan, maybe Kansas City offense type approach to the game. So I think what you're able to do, I mean, are running backs underpaid? Yeah, probably. At the same time, you're using a running back by committee, so you don't have to commit those amount of resources under your salary cap to one particular person.
Yeah, I just think for certain people like Saquon and Josh Jacobs, they're screwed by this franchise tag. And to me, one of the things that if you were the NFLPA is you need to be able to change it so that if you're using these guys and they're getting 40% of your offense, your franchise tag should go up as pro rata. You shouldn't get 11 million, you should get 15 million. It's the bottom's 11, but if you're being used up, here's 15. And I think that's just one of those things. They just didn't get this right in the collective bargaining agreement. So, and the week ahead, we're getting into closer to actual preseason. We've got about 2 weeks until our first preseason game.
August 13th.
I believe the Niners are going to be doing joint practices pretty soon with the Raiders.
with a
So
certain former quarterback.
with a certain forward quarterback. So, Brian, in the weeks ahead, what would you like to see or hear from our 49ers?
I just want to hear no one gets hurt. So that's first and foremost, no one gets hurt. And then I guess I would love to see that Brock Purdy is back. And it sounds like from what I'm reading today, he's very close to it. Everyone's kind of clicking on all cylinders and everyone's ready to go. And I want to see Nick Bosa back. That's also my point number 2. So
Tim?
Yeah, I completely agree with Brian. No injuries. Purdy, I would be reluctant to even play him in the preseason. If anything, maybe a series, but what is the point of putting him in there? So, yeah, just the team continues to develop. They continue to gel as a team so that by first Sunday in September or whenever that date is against the Steelers, they're ready to go.
I kind of want to see more rookies step up. I've heard some decent stuff about obviously our new safety, but I'd like to hear a little bit more. And then last but not least, this came across today. It is Tuesday, which means it's Taco Tuesday. We signed our defensive end, Taco, whatever his last name is.
What are the odds?
Exactly. That's why Taco is going to be us. It's Taco Tuesday. We're doing this podcast.
All right.
So, do you think they signed him just because they found a guy that works with him? Or do they think that maybe Drake Jackson's not maybe the guy? Tim?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think I think DL with Bosa being out is a little thin right now. So I think he's come in to fill a role. I don't know if he's going to be able to last the whole training camp, but signing him on this particular Tuesday, Taco Tuesday, I think it's coincidence. I don't think it's anything more than that.
And nobody on Twitter has actually said that. Not even Kawakami. Like,
So you should start it. You should start seeing if you get any, get the hashtag going and see how much it goes.
what if Taco gets mad at me? I mean, he could
Well,
legitimately
you're on a
take me-
podcast. So I think a lot of people are going to get mad at you for this or that. I mean, you've got plenty of time to make people angry at you.
Brian, what do you think of Taco Tuesday?
as Tim was saying, I think it's always fine to have more defensive linemen. I think there's no hurt in it. And Tim brings up the point about Bosa not being there. I think it's absolutely fine. About Taco Tuesday itself, that's what I'm actually making for dinner right after this.
It is Taco Charlton,
There you go.
but I think the Niners really should have done more around Taco Tuesday for this signing. But
I just rather they focus on Purdy's his recovery, Trey Lance's short passing game, things like that, than Taco Tuesday. But that's just me.
okay. So that brings us to a couple things that we're going to end the episode with. I believe, Brian, you have some trivia for us.
Yeah, so let's try something new this week. I'm going to take out 4 questions and I'm going to quiz both you guys. We can talk about them now, but I'll give you the answers at the end of the show. So right before we end. So you guys can
Sounds good.
chat amongst yourselves, try to figure it out. Okay, so let's start first.
Okay.
Let's give this a shot and then we can see if we want to add more questions or take out questions in the future. First
Or
one
have
is,
our viewers email us questions.
there you go.
John@ninerstalk.com. Do it now. No dick pics.
Okay, first one is, as training camp started and they're playing in Santa Clara at the SAP facility. Prior to them playing, there are 7 schools which the Niners have used as practice facilities for preseason. Can you name 4 of the 7?
So the question is, the 49ers have been practicing in Santa Clara the past few years, and what are the 4 schools that the 49ers have used in previous training camps? Is that the question? And I have to name 4 of the 7?
They practice at 7.
At 7.
Name
Name
4 of the 7.
All right. Sierra Community College, that was Rockland. University of Pacific, that was over in Stockton. Santa Clara University. And UC Santa Barbara, that's 4.
John, what about you?
Oh, and St. Mary's College over in the East Bay.
You'll never tip so. I'm like, maybe they practice College of Marin one day. Oh, College of Marin. That's my guess. College of Marin. All right. What's your second question, Brian?
Speaking of colleges, which college did Bill Walsh go to? And what which colleges did he go to? And what position for bonus did he play
I think
at
he
those
went to San
schools?
Jose State and he played quarterback.
Tim?
I will
That's
say
my
San
guess.
Jose State, and he was a wide receiver.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Third question.
Third question.
Ownership group. So as right now, the ownership group is technically still part of the York family. Now I know it's not
Mhm.
DeBartolo York, previously DeBartolo York. So it's technically the DeBartolo family. What was the name of the family that owned the Niners prior to DeBartolo?
The Morbidos.
Hey, I don't know family. We go with the I don't know family.
Okay. Last question.
More
Tim's going to know this. Tim's going to know this one right off the bat. What is the name of the quarterback that Joe Montana took over for in week 7? What is it? The 1980 season. And
1979.
there you go. And what
Steve
college
DeBerg.
did he go to?
What college did Steve DeBerg go to?
I'm still getting over Morabito. I'm like, do they own funeral parlors across the United States?
No, he
So-
was in the lumber business.
How does that do with college?
Oh no,
Does
he's
he-
talking about question number 3. The
Yeah,
ownership.
why
Oh,
you said what business was the Morbidos in? I believe he was in the lumber business.
It's way more interesting if he's funeral parlors.
Steve DeBerg's college.
I
Oh,
want to say University of Oregon.
I don't think it was that. It was something. I don't know. I don't know what Steve DeBerg's college.
Okay.
Do you think anybody has a Steve DeBerg tattoo on their back?
Maybe Mrs. DeBerg.
Tim, what number what number was Steve DeBerg, by the way?
17.
Oh man.
Not
This
retired,
guy's
by the way. All right, so
That's
we'll
it.
get to one of my favorite parts is stuff we bought on Amazon this week. And if you're looking on the website, you can click on it and buy it and put a few bucks in our pockets so we can keep doing this podcast. But Tim, direct from Orlando, what'd you buy on Amazon this week?
We bought, thanks to Wirecutter and the New York Times, the best hot water kettle on the market, apparently.
And is it meeting your standards?
Middle of the summer, absolutely not. But come winter, I'm sure it will.
Anything else? Just a hot water killer?
Cat food, fancy feast, gravy. That's what my cat likes.
What? No gravy?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, she's a rescue and she will not eat any dry food and she will not eat just any canned cat food. It has to be seafood gravy from Fancy Feast. So there you go.
Fancy feast in a kettle.
You got it.
Anything else?
Now that's it.
All right. Mr. Brian?
I have bought nothing on Amazon this week. That's
Call yourself an
surprising.
American.
I think that's
my
against the
gosh.
law.
But I know I do have on my list, I need to buy something. I want to buy a hat cleaner. So I know that I always wear hats all the time, especially on the brims underneath. They get super dirty. I was just looking at that earlier today.
There's this thing called a sink. You just run it under hot water.
I don't know. I want to buy something a little
Really?
more.
Look at this bad boy. I mean, clean by my own 2 hands. So
And
that's
what
it.
else
Nothing.
do I-
You got a hat cleaner on the wish list?
And I also need to buy I know you guys have young kids too. I wanted to, my daughter asked for a bracelet so she can wear her air tag that I put into her backpack. So I don't know if you guys do that too, but
I do it
something like that.
for my dog.
So you're low jacking your daughter, but you're low jacking her like out in the open,
Yes.
essentially. Okay. Just want to make sure.
Well, I'm anxious to hear how we did on the questions.
Well, no, don't you want to hear what I bought on Amazon?
Oh, we get to you. Sure.
We'll
Go
come
for
back.
it. Sorry.
Well, I bought this handy dandy new microphone like we all did. So the Blue Yeti microphone, which hopefully everybody hears is a little bit better. And then both my daughters swim. So they had tryouts and we got Speedo women's goggles mirrored Vanquish 2.0. So they were apparently pretty good because they both made the team and my oldest daughter got third in the country club championship. So,
And absolute congratulations. to her.
Congrats.
all right, Brian, put us out of our misery. Find out what the Morabito funeral parlor actually.
Let's go in order.
Next.
Let's go in order here. So training camp locations. Tim, you got 5 of the 7
Shocker.
correct.
What did I? I
So-
don't know. I don't know. Was it a training location?
I'll go in reverse. I'll go from now until from the
right.
beginning of the 49ers. So UOP, University of Pacific, 98-02. Rockland, so Sierra College in Rockland, 81-97. Santa Clara was 79-80, only 2 years. San Jose State, which was missed, 76, 77, and 78. UC Santa Barbara, which I did not expect, 68-75. St. Mary's, 55-67, and then Menlo College
Huh.
to start it all off, 46-54.
College of Marin's gonna be next year.
Yeah,
There
I'm
you go.
sure. They've got plenty of space. I'm sure the people in there would love to have 49er training camp.
All right, number 2, which college did Bill Walsh go to? So Tim, you said,
Right.
okay, John, you say,
I said San Jose State.
okay, so he went to San Jose State. He played tight end and defensive end,
Huh.
and then he also played quarterback at College of San Mateo. So the JC up there.
There
Did
you
not know
go.
that.
You know what I also found
Nope.
out about Bill Walsh is he was left-handed.
I never knew that.
I remember watching, it was a Football Life when they did Bill Walsh, and he was warming up his receivers, and he's throwing with his left hand. I never knew that.
Do you know? I also found out that his first name was William.
I did not know that.
Well, it's Bill.
I just like it.
I mean,
All right. So
some of us that 49ers trivia, some of us are masters of the obvious. That's how you
Yes.
go.
Okay, question number 3, ownership group. So yes, Tim, I don't know how you got this. It was the Morabito family.
because I read way too much about the 49ers, I don't get out and have much of a social life. That's the reason.
Yes, the Morabito family was the ownership group from 46 to 77. But Tony Morabito, he died in 57, so it passed on to his widow, and his widow essentially ran it up until right before DeBartolo took over. So, and yes, it was lumber. Number 4, what's the name of the quarterback? Yes, Steve DeBerg. He went to San Jose
Wait. Oh, okay. I was gonna guess, but never mind. Go. He went where?
San Jose State. So that kind of stemmed when I was looking up where Bill Walsh went. So I didn't realize that Steve DeBerg also went there. So maybe there's that connection. And I think he actually started his JC days over at, he's down from LA. He's from the LA area. So he's OC area. He went to Fullerton College, kind of down there. Let's see. I guess to count it off, Tim, I'm going to give you the Bill Walsh thing. So I'm going to say you got 3 of the 4. John, I don't know. You
Stop a
really,
goose egg.
you did get the Bill Walsh thing. So I'll
No,
give you
I'm-
1 point.
A Morabito on the morbid, Anyway. So,
Right. Yeah.
final thoughts on this week, guys?
Just good to
How-
have football back. Good to have something to talk about that's actually happening, not who the best NFC East team is in the month of November from the years 2007 to 2015. That's what I see on Get Up and First Take. And I'm just glad we can talk about football. Like these people are in the building and they're hitting and passing and catching and running.
Who the best NFC East team is from 2015 to
I
2017?
have no idea. I just made that up.
I'm trying to think who is the best team in that.
At that, I'm going to go with the Giants, maybe.
Probably the Cowboys. They always get close and then they blow it. Stephen A. Smith has got a whole thing on that. Like, I mean, how many times have they gone to the playoffs? Like,
How about the
you know, the Super
Cowboys?
Bowls. Exactly.
2 playoff outstings courtesy of
Niners. All right. On that note, Niners Talk Nation, faithful, time to bid you adieu. Enjoy your week. We'll be back next week with a preview of the Raiders preseason game. And looking forward to hearing your comments. Give us a like, give us a follow, send us an email, John at 49ers at NinersTalk.com. And let's go Niners.